And welcome to another episode of Fight Night Picks Kicks. Hey, maybe you haven't checked it out. FightNightPicks.com. We got some great stuff over there, including a written up interview with Diego Fajeos competing on today's card. We have Joshua Hart's full card betting guide. Little unfortunate that we did lose Ryan Benoit and Ben Rothwell. Those were his best bets, but there's some other great stuff over there. Pop and popcorn fights. And if you haven't checked it out before, Fight Night Picks, yes, we have a store. You can pick up some of the Fight Night Picks merch, including the black long sleeve tee, the baseball jersey. There's only a few of those left. And the Fight Night Picks Under Armour caps. So check it out, FightNightPicks.com. All sorts of great stuff and the podcast over on the website. And as we always say with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it. Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick onto any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minkah Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clelin Ferrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it. Matt, look at that. Look at that. We're here. I don't know where the intro is. It's not in the regular lineup, but we'll get ready for it nonetheless. And Matt, really looking forward to this weekend's card. As always, one half of your host, Craig Allen. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. With me as always, Matt Allen FNP. And as an aside, I also somehow deleted all of the graphics and overlays, so I had to do them about a half hour before the show. Now that right there, as Bro Bogan would say, is professionalism, but sometimes stuff happens and you gotta roll with the punches, just like this entire card, Matt. There were 10 fights. There are 10 fights, but there were 10 fights total that were canceled before this show. It's absolutely insane, but overall, pretty good lineup of fights.
I'm actually looking forward to the fights tonight. I'm not gonna lie. It isn't the best card ever, top to bottom, but it's one of those fight cards that you know it is gonna deliver. There's gonna be one of those fights that we're all gonna be talking about tomorrow and the next day and so on. But I am a little bit disappointed that we were supposed to get TJ Dillashaw versus Corey Sandhagen tonight, and now the consolation prize is, of course, Michelle Waterson, Marina Rodriguez. But other than that, I do think it's a great card.
It should be a good one. If this is the first time that you've tuned into Fight Night Picks and Kicks, A, we thank you, but B, what we're going to do, we're going to run through our Fight of the Night picks. We're going to run through the entire card, top to bottom, offer the Kicks parlay, and then we'll go back through it once more because there's always stragglers, but we appreciate everybody for tuning in. Jacob Weaver saying, let's get into it. Todd's hanging out. Everybody is loving it. And Matt, next weekend, we got a really big card, too, with UFC 262. So let's throw it over to our Fight of the Night screen. As always, presented by Manscaped. I'll talk about my balls, as I always do, later on in the show. But we look at it, and there's two picks. I mean, Donald Cerrone, Alex Morono. How could you not like it? With Morono, he's got the Taekwondo background. He's got quite a bit in his back pocket that he can use with his jiu-jitsu as well. And he's taking on one of the more well-known, and I would say eventual Hall of Famers, Donald Cowboy Cerrone, the People's Champ, the guy that never really won the belt. But he's had a lot of opportunities, especially in his last 5 fights. And I talk opportunities against some really big names. Even the Nico Price fight, that was a fun one. The Pettis fight was a fun one. Unfortunately, both these guys lost to Pettis in their last number of fights, but what do you make of this one?
This should be a really fun fight. Cowboy's been in there with pretty much everybody. Like, he has 5 guys on his record who all fight just like Alex Morono. And for Morono, this is a big step up. He had that opportunity to fight one of those legends in the division with Pettis last time out. It didn't go his way, so if he is able to get the win over Cowboy, yes, it's not the same thing as beating a Cowboy in his prime, but it's still a huge name to beat no matter what stage of your career that you're at. So I think this is an absolutely massive fight in the co-main event.
Should be a great one, and if we flip it on over to our other pick, I mean, Neil Magny taking on Jeff Neal. The fight before this, both these ones at welterweight. You have Neil Magny that, is he going to kind of wrestle? Is he going to try and slow things down? Who's going to operate in space? You got Jeff Neal, a guy that was just dusting everybody until he took on Wonder Boy, one of the best strikers we've ever seen. I love this fight, and I love that Sean McMinn hit up the Super Chat supporting the boys. with the $5 super chat.
Neil Magny's kind of like Chris Paul. Okay, he's not as good as Chris Paul. He's like Mike Connolly. He just can slow down the game to a point where he can make the right decisions. And yes, Neil Magny doesn't always make the right decisions, but it's normally when he's in there with fighters like Jeff Neal, who are those really dangerous, explosive strikers from the outside. So I couldn't be more excited for this fight. This is the fight I'm looking forward to the most on the whole entire card.
This should be a great one. And Matt, we had a great week last week. We had the one draw. You went 7-3. I went 8-2, if I'm not mistaken. Huge one. So I'll take that back just for this week.
But wait,
taking back the Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy for the week. But overall, Matt, yeah, I love this card, and we were kind of different on a few of these picks. And if you went and checked out, and I said it in the intro, you looked at the best bets that we had over on the site, Joshua Hart's full card betting guide. It was unfortunate that we lost both of his best bets, the Ben Rothwell fight, the Ryan Benoit fight, and I have to feel like you and I felt pretty confident in those ones too.
We did, and it does suck. Like, we talked about this, I guess, in our sort of kind of mini recap show last night, where listen, it felt like for a while, every week there'd be 5 fights that got canceled due to COVID. But it feels like, at least for a little while, there haven't been that many COVID cancellations. And then all of a sudden, on weigh-in day of all days, when you think the fighters are finally going to make it, and they just got to get past that last hurdle, yeah, so many fighters were either unable to make weight or medically unable to even be cleared in the first place. So, just a weird event. All in all, you would kind of mention there's been as many cancellations now as actually fights booked. So, a really weird event tonight, but like we've said a few times now, it is a pretty good fight card.
Should be a great one. Talking Sports saying, anyone have some good plus 1,000 picks, method of victory picks? That what?
That's tough.
That's very, very tough. But I mean, hey, like I said, last weekend went well. And this week we're a little split, and this is a tough one. So I got to say that right out of the gate. You only have 10 fights, so it'll be interesting. And if you go back and you look at the PFL this week as well as Bellator, some big underdogs hitting. I mean, you had Anche Delia. He was a minus 500 to 600. He lost. Yeah, Verdum was a big favorite. He lost.
Didn't he, though?
Bellator as well. Some interesting ones. So, Matt, we'll throw it on down to the start. And this is where the Fight Night Picks Kicks parlay starts. I have Carlston Harris to get the win over Christian Aguilera. That's my one of two right there. And listen, when I had a look at the odds, and I'll go through them, boom, boom, you had Harris at a minus 185. Do I love it? Not so much, but I do like Harris to get the win over Aguilera. You look at Harris's record outside of the UFC, spent time with Brave. He had the one fight with UAE Warriors, beat a sizable, I would say a favorite, really, in Khabib Nurmagomedov's training partner, who was 17-1 at the time. If you look at Harris's fights going back through his amateur circuit, a lot of really good takedowns, a lot of pressure up against the cage. Even from open space, he can shoot. You have to know that Aguilera is going to go out there trying to defend a lot of the takedowns. He was a guy that had a fight booked earlier on this year, but it fell out due to injury, and he was off for some time. Now he's taking this fight. I like the matchup. It's a good one for Harris coming in. It's a good one for Aguilera, too, because this guy's got dynamite in his hands. I love it.
It should be a really fun fight, but I do agree with you. I like Carlston Harris quite a bit in this fight because I just haven't seen enough out of Aguilera in his UFC tenure so far. When you thought about him on his way into the UFC, I thought there was a lot more promise in the fighter that we did end up getting. Now, maybe he goes out there, springs a massive upset, and we have a completely different opinion on him tomorrow, but no, I couldn't agree more. I do like Carlston Harris quite a bit in this fight, but it will be a really fun fight to open up this card with.
Michael Roth making up a good point. Yeah, Kayla Harrison needs to come to the UFC. I don't know if she does. She can just keep racking up million after million after million. Wins are wins, but yeah, when you're getting that dough, you might as well kick around. And if we have a look at Fight Night Picks over on the Instagrams, and that's where we go for a lot of the votes that we're going to be talking about with this show, I was kind of interested to see it because 62% going with Harris to 38% going with Aguilera. I've got Harris.
So do I.
Matt's got Harris as well. We'll move on to our next fight. We have Jin Park taking on Tafon Nchukwi. Weight wasn't an issue, and that was one of those things for Nchukwi. He was a guy light heavyweight that came down to middleweight. You were kind of worried, hey, how's it going to go? It went great in his first fight. He took on a really tough out Jamie Pickett, a guy that turned out to have an iron chin.
He did.
And Nchukwi looked great. And for Jin Park, he looked great in his last fight too, taking on a really tough out and a guy that just never says die, never quits, an old John Phillips. And look, Park looked great in that fight. And if you go through Park's UFC tenure, listen, I mean, sometimes you're not going to beat Anthony Hernandez. Sometimes you're going to win 2 in a row coming into this one. Like I said, the one against Phillips, the win over Marc-Andre Barriault. For Tafon Nchukwi, Only 5 fights, but then he has an extensive Muay Thai background to go with it. That's what you like out of him. He actually has the height and reach advantage in this one. Quite a bit of reach over the Iron Turtle, Jin Young Park, a guy that can box his heart off. He really can. The weird thing coming into this fight, and I saw a lot of people kind of talking about this one, you look at Tafon Nchukwi and you think, okay, he has a judo background. His takedown defense is really good. Offensively, not quite there. Do you see Jin Young Park going out there trying to force the takedown in this fight?
I think he's going to have to at a certain point, but I do think that the first 2 minutes of this fight is really going to tell the tale of the whole thing, because whoever's moving forward should be the one having success. If Tafon's the one moving forward, throwing in combinations, landing leg kicks, landing with power, it's going to be a short night for Park, and I don't doubt that whatsoever. But if Park can withstand some of those earlier flurries and put it on him, and here's the thing, even as I'm saying it, it's not even as simple as Jin Young Park makes it to the third round, because Nchukwi's going to get tired. Tafon has decent cardio for a guy who's built like he is with as much power as he has, and that's why I like Tafon so much in this fight. I do think the Park's gonna have to go for those takedowns, and I do think he's gonna start reaching for those and really just struggling to get the takedown as this fight progresses. And as this fight moves on, I do think Tafon's gonna land with power at some point.
To go over to the comments section with Phoenix, you're here moderating every week. Kayla did fight at 45 on that Invicta card that she was on, so she has had the one fight. It went well for her. Yeah, I was high on Jin Young Park at the start of the week based on the volume, but then you see the guys at weigh-ins, and you really kind of factor in that I see, some tinfoil hat stuff over there in the comment section, but you really put everything together. I will flip the pick. I like Tafon Nchukwi in this fight, Matt. I like him so much that he's the second leg of the question mark kicks parlay. So we're going off quick. We're going with Tafon Nchukwi minus 140 and Carlston Harris at a minus 185. And I'm cool with it. I like that to start this one off. I'm normally the type of guy, and it makes me sweat the whole card, where I go one fairly early, one near the end, and everybody in the comments section goes, but what's the parlay? Well, that's it. I'm going with Tafon Nchukwi and the man himself, Carlston Harris, to kick off the card. And you seem pretty surprised. I mean, Alex the Great saying, guys, don't underestimate Park so much. He's more experienced. That's true. I mean,
he is, but this is the key, and we did kind of talk about this, not steal your thunder, but Tafon has so many more fights that we just don't credit to his MMA record. Like, yes, he's green in MMA experience, but he's had so much more experience striking before he ever went into MMA that I don't look at this as being this massive experience factor that Park has over Tafon.
Yeah, that's fair. I see OJ saying, I don't know why this fight scares me. Jin Young Park's a good fighter. I think the line's right where it should be. It is a close fight. I had a hard time with it, even me flip-flopping
They're
the
both
picks.
Good fighters.
Again, it is a good one. And if we go over, you know what? I'll lock it in just because people are asking. I had it written down, but I want to make sure. So I had Harris at professional, a minus 185 when I locked him in. Boom. And if you go with Tafon Nchukwi minus 140, it's a plus 164. So that is what it is. And I'm looking forward to this fight a lot. Matt, we move into our next one. There's so much support out there on the interwebs for Ludovit Klein. If we look at Fight Night Picks over on Instagram, 78% of fans are going with Klein to get the win here. I know he's the biggest favorite on the card too. He's about a minus 300 on certain sites, minus 250 on others. This just goes to show how good the matchmaking is on this card, that this is your biggest favorite.
Yeah, it is kind of wild. Here's the problem with Mike Trizano. Mike Trizano won one of the worst seasons of The Ultimate Fighter ever. There, I said it. Like, beating John Gunther doesn't mean anything to me. I'm sorry. Beating Joe Giannetti by split decision means about the same. And then beating Luis Pena in a fight that I thought he lost by split decision, it's just Mike Trizano's barely got by in a lot of these fights that he probably should be winning comfortably. And listen, I even thought him against Pena, I thought both guys had pretty high ceilings going into that fight. Afterwards, I'm pretty sure neither guy's going to be making any big waves in the division. But for Trizano, I just haven't seen enough out of him. I know he can have that grinding style. I know he's got decent Muay Thai. But the problem is, Klein has the counter for pretty much anything Trizano throws at him. If Trizano tries to keep this fight standing, I'm more than comfortable with Klein picking him apart on the feet, trying to land power shots as he enters. And then if Trizano just try to take Klein down, Klein's good enough at getting back up to his feet, and he can threaten with some submissions off his back. So I like Klein quite a bit in this fight, although Trizano, with all this time off, might be able to come into this fight showing a new wrinkle that we haven't seen before.
That's it. I mean, Mike Trizano, guy training out of Tiger Schulman's, you'll see those guys in the corner, and you look at the level of training partner for Mike Trizano, and you might think, well, I don't hear about the gym all that much. It can't be that great, but really, the Shane Burgos of the world, Julio Arce, I wish I could see him fight more often. Nice. You've got some really good guys. Jimmy Rivera, another guy in the lower weight classes there as well. I love the fight. It's a tricky one. I know Mike Trizano, if you look at the opening line, it's kind of gone a little squirrely. The fans are all on Klein, and I see a lot of people over there in the comments section. Seems like they're going with Klein. For Kevin Roman saying, Mike trains with my cousin. Mike's game plan is to take him down early. I would expect that as well, that he would go for a lot of takedowns.
Knowledge.
And Mike Trizano is a pretty good wrestler, too. We've seen that. He's mostly a striker. He has an amateur kickboxing record, but he can mix everything in. That's what I like out of him. And listen, I mean, maybe the 2 years off, he's gotten a lot better. For Ludovit Klein, is he the best off his back? Maybe not. He does have good jiu-jitsu, so I'm eager to see this fight. Maybe this is a little bit of a preview of your Ferreira fight with Gillespie. We'll see what happens, but I like Ludovit Klein in this one as well. Matt, let's move into our next fight. Phil Hawes, and for Philadelphia Hawes, this is a guy that, listen, he's gone the road of Charles Oliveira. He's done the Derek Brunson. We're going platinum blonde into fight week, taking on Chris's brother, Kyle. Matt, for Chris's brother, Kyle Daukaus is an interesting case, right? Because you look at his UFC career, CFFC champ, and that's great. But in the UFC, has a fight against Brendan Allen, loses at the start, wins at the end, ultimately loses the fight. Then his next time out, he looked really good against a smaller Dustin Stoichwitz. You have to say that. That was a guy coming up from 70, fighting at 85. But Kyle looked great.
He did.
Then he was supposed to take on Aliaskhab Hizriev his last time out, and that was just, 8 weeks ago or so? 6 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Whatever it was. He was supposed to take him on, and that would have been a great fight, because for Hizriev, he throws wild head kicks, wild strikes, he just kind of powers people down, he has good cardio. And for Kyle, we had a good interview with him on the channel with JHK, where Kyle kind of talked about it. You know, I fought shorter guys before, I don't change my approach, I expect to strike. Now you're taking on another shorter guy, and I don't know if I'd want to strike with Phil Hawes.
I don't think he's going to. This is the thing. If Kyle Daukaus goes out there and strikes with Phil Hawes, he's going to get knocked out. And I feel very comfortable in saying that. Phil Hawes has that dangerous kind of power where you don't even want to try to risk your chin. Because if he lands one shot, you're probably going to go down, and he will follow it up with a lot more strikes. With Daukaus, though, I do think he can just outgrind Phil Hawes. With Hawes, people got to understand, he got knocked out by Julian Marquez, who isn't that good of a striker. Like, you have to understand, Julian Marquez isn't, but still, that means Julian Marquez is even worse at striking back then, if anything. Like, Phil Hawes is a good fighter with a lot of power, and I do think he can win this matchup, but Mike Goldberg would love this fight, because this really is just one of those clash of styles. I do think Daukaus can be able to get that takedown, though. I think if he does get caught by Phil Hawes, he will get hurt, but I do think he can work through those positions. And I know I said if Hawes can follow up with ground and pound, he might be able to finish him. I don't think he can jump into his guard. I don't think Phil Hawes can risk any grappling exchanges with Daukaus in this fight, and that's why I like Kyle Daukaus so much.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people in the comments section. Al is saying Daukaus got that weird bod.
He does.
Yeah, he does. He's a very tall guy. You know, he's the type of guy that, you know.
The blonde hair scares me, though, because here's the thing. Everyone who dyes their hair blonde seems to win and get way better overnight because of it. But no, I do still like Daukaus.
I do like the fight. DPS makes a great point saying Hawes is also a former D1 wrestler. And you see that in his fights, even in the fight. And listen, again, I was in the minority. I thought Imavov won. Imovov's got a really big fight that just got announced, and it's a bigger step up than Hawes is getting with Daukaus and Hawes winning. So that's interesting stuff there. But yeah, it is an interesting one. If we look at Fight Night Picks over on Instagram, 51% Hawes to 49% that have Daukaus. If we have a look at the odds for this one, I think this is a great fight. Daukaus a slight favorite, minus 130. You got Hawes coming back around a plus 100. I'm really eager to see this fight. I had a hard time with it. I'm still going with Phil Hawes. I think that early pressure. The comment section kind of saying, you know, if Kyle Daukaus can just withstand the power, that's a bad thing. And I know that's more a comment than it is a method of fighting. But I do like Phil Hawes. I do like the wrestling. But again, if it goes on, you get the longer guy, the guy that's experienced at grappling, you get down on the mat, you get a tired Phil Hawes. That's an easy way to get submitted.
That's what the flip side always is. Yeah, it's dangerous for Kyle Daukaus to be on the feet with Phil Hawes, but if he gets a takedown, and I mean even one takedown, he's going to make it worth its while. He's not just going to waste time on the mat. He's going to damage you. He's going to go for a submission. I like Daukaus, but again, this is going to be one of those fights where it's going to go one way or the other.
That's it. Bro Bogan makes up a really good point, saying going to try and get Daukaus late in the first round live. I think that's probably the way to go with Daukaus. Being around a minus, 130, 140. Like, so. I wouldn't go with that, but wait till the end of the first. If Hawes doesn't get the finish, maybe like Daukaus. Like I said, I'm going Hawes, you're going Daukaus. It's all good. It's a close fight.
It is.
Our next one, we have Amanda Heboss taking on Angela Hill. Really excited to see what the chat's thinking about this one. Bailey's saying, let's get into it, boys. Matt, there's 350 tuning in. Only 71 likes. It takes 2 seconds. It's an easy one. Just toss a like and we continue. But you got a fight here where I wasn't overly surprised. You got 60% going Heboss to 40% going with Angela Hill at Fight Night Picks over on Instagram. Lucas is saying, how do we get access to your FNP parlay? You listened to the start of the show. I already gave it away. Amanda Heboss and Angela Hill, what are you thinking here?
It's a really fun fight, and it really, you had talked about some of the matchmaking on this card earlier on. This is one of the better better matched up fights on the whole card, because with Heboss, we really don't know. Like, I know you can get knocked out by Marina Rodriguez when you cut like 30 pounds in 1 week, and that's not a good idea. But I also only know that you're better than like Paige Van Zandt and Mackenzie Dern, who came back way too soon. So with Heboss, there's so many question marks out there just about what her ceiling really is. And on the flip side, Angela Hill's fought everybody. And I'm not like, that's not a joke, that's not hyperbole. She's fought everybody at strawweight. So if you can get a win over someone like Angela Hill, it does prove that you not only belong in the top 15, you're probably a top 10 talent at that. So if Heboss can go out there, get the takedown, go for a sub early, I do think she'll be able to get this fight. It will be interesting because both fighters' strengths play into the other one's weaknesses. We've seen Angela Hill struggle on the mat, and she can give up submissions sometimes. With Heboss, of course, that's her big strength. On the feet, I am a little bit worried about Heboss. She is a hittable fighter. The thing with Hill, though, is I don't really think she has the power to hurt her enough to knock her out. I think she might be able to drop her. She might be able to hit her with a lot of volume. But I do like Heboss at the end of the day. I think she'll be able to get this fight to the mat where she's at her best. And I think she'll be able to get the sub.
I gotta go after Grizzly1239 saying, Hill's terrible. She lost the Karate Hottie.
I thought she won.
I thought she won too. And then she took on Claudia Gadelha, and you could have made an argument either way. And sometimes not all split decisions are created equal. We're going to be talking about one soon. Diego Fea, Benil Dariush. It was a split, but Benil won that fight 9 times out of 10. Like, it wasn't all that close. But with Hill in those 2 fights that she lost, she could arguably be on a tidy little win streak if the judges went her way. So for me, I see where Clay is saying Heboss has the higher ceiling. She'll eventually be good enough to beat any version of Hill. I think you're right in a way. It's just, again, yeah, with Heboss, you look at her last fight where she's following. She's not really cutting the cage. We talked about it in the original prediction video saying that, Matt, you look at it with Heboss, she's not at ATT. She's at her dad's gym again down in Brazil, so it'll be interesting to see what we get out of her this way. The Tiny Moss Beetle saying $3 on Craig getting the win. Odds are minus 170. I think it would happen. I don't know what I'd do. Maybe like the left body shot, my favorite shot in all of MMA. Juan Archuleta was doing it over and over and over again. It's just a shame he got caught with that right hook every time. But yeah, I still like Angela Hill in this fight, Matt. And again, it's the volume. It's the footwork.
Got submitted by Randa Marcos. This is my problem. Randa's professional record is 10-11-1. And I know records are for DJs, they don't tell the whole story. But still, like, at a certain point, you're like Russell Westbrook putting up triple doubles for teams that are under 500. It doesn't matter at a certain point. I can't say a fighter is going to win if she's been submitted by Randa Marcos. I'm sorry, it's just a rule that I have from now on.
That's fair. So you're going Heboss.
I am.
I'm going Hill. We will move on through this one, but the fans have it close over at Fight Night Picks, 60% with Heboss to 40% with Angela Hill. Matt, our next fight, Diego Fea taking on Gregor Gillespie. If you missed our kind of State of the Union UFC Vegas 26 update that we put out last night, we kind of said that, yeah, Diego missing weight, weighing in at 160.5. That's going to be, an interesting move coming into this fight. For Diego, I honestly didn't think he looked terrible on the scale, but he didn't look great. But everybody,
He'd probably look worse if he had to cut the extra 4 pounds and actually make weight. That's my problem. With Diego Ferreira, he has really good cardio. He's a good striker. He's got great jiu-jitsu. Like, he's a super well-rounded fighter. The fact that he missed weight is just such a bad look, especially when this fight arguably has the most eyes on it of any fight on this whole entire card. You have 2 of the top-ranked lightweights. It's Gregor Gillespie's return. You know you're going to get the most game version of Gillespie. And here's the thing. I know what version I'm going to get of CDF, and I understand he might be a little bit older. He might not be as good as he once was. And I do feel like he's a fighter who hit his prime a little bit later in life. But still, so at a certain point, athletically, you are going to start to diminish. Gregor Gillespie has never looked better on the scale. I think his wrestling is just really going to dominate this fight. My only hesitation about being so confident with Gregor Gillespie is you look at how good CDF striking looked in the Mirabak-Taisimov fight. If he can start landing some of those kicks at range, he might really be able to start stifling the attack of Gregor Gillespie. But other than that, I am quite confident with the Gillespie pick.
You look at it, and for Diego Ferreira, this is a guy that trains with bigger fighters and trains his striking with bigger fighters. OJ's saying Matt versus Randa Marcos, let's make it happen, Dana. The Canadian connection.
She'd win, but like...
We'd have to have the fight in the middle, so Sherbrooke, Quebec, let's get up. Let's make the fight in Sherbrooke. If anybody's tuning in from there, Hi.
Hi.
Matt, with Diego Ferreira, though, yeah, striking and quality of training partner, the Moronos of the world, the Abdulrazak Al-Hassans of the world, and so on and so forth, in the higher weight classes fighting. And then you look at the man himself in Gregor Gillespie, trains with some good guys at Belmore Kickboxing Academy that you know and love, like Andre Harrison. Who else? There's other fighters there that just aren't coming to mind right now. Harrison's the first one I can think of. But I look at this one, and I see Ray Quinones going with the same comment every time. Let him talk. He was just looking at my comment. I was, but you just keep putting it out there. Diego's going to have a hard time holding the wall against a good wrestler in Gregor Gillespie. I think Gillespie would be able to reverse position if he's up that way. What else? Urban Men of New Jersey. What a waste of a donated question. Hey, how about you donate a question, and we'll answer yours. But yeah, I look at this one. Diego's got the striking advantage. We saw that to Gregor Gillespie's detriment in his last fight. But Gillespie was one of those guys that was a favorite pretty well all the way up. Dominated all of his opponents until future champ Kevin Lee. And now you've got a really tough fight for Gillespie against Ferreira. The weight cut, though, really scares me. I had Ferreira at the start of the week, and now it's a tough one.
Gregor Gillespie was Khamzat Chimaev before Khamzat Chimaev was in the UFC. There you go. Like, no one's made this comparison yet, and I'm very surprised. He took everybody down. If you stood on the feet with him, he would drop you, and then on the ground, he would submit you. No one had even a competitive fight with him, and then eventually he lost. We're going to have the exact same opinion about Chimaev after he loses. He has a very similar career trajectory. I think Gregor Gillespie is going to remind everyone why he's so good and why he was so hyped up to begin with. I was never of the team that thought, oh, Gillespie, like, he's a bad matchup for Khabib. Just watch it until he gets to the top of the division. But I do think he's a good enough fighter to beat CDF at this version, or at this point of his career.
Yeah, all right, Matt. So I switched the pick. I put it out there on Twitter. I put it out there everywhere I could. You can't, when a guy misses weight that much, Matt, you got to go with Gregor Gillespie. We talked about it myself. I even said, like, this guy looks like a brick house on the Instagrams, on the Twitters, and he looked great on the scale, and he made weight. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that are on the fence about weight missers. Joshua Hart, I put one of his tweets over in the comments section. It was like 51 and 57 in the last few years about weight missers winning or losing. So yeah, I'm going to go with Gregor Gillespie. It is a close fight. It's a tricky one. I'd leave it off my card. Maybe see value in Gillespie being about a minus 165.
I like Gillespie a lot. I'll leave it at that.
If we look at Fight Night picks, 75% of fans have Gillespie to win too. So we'll move on from there. Zach G saying 5K on Gregor. Yikes. And for everybody that's saying that Heboss and Hill is off, are you serious? Like, am I going to have to check this one on Twitter? I don't see anything. I still don't see anything. Matt, let's move on to our next fight. Maurice Green looks in very good physical shape.
He does.
And Marcos Rogerio de Lima, he weighed in at 264.5. This is a guy that made 205 on the nose at light heavyweight. And then he had a hard time making weight after that and had to move up to heavyweight. But he's really gained a lot of weight. He's a big guy.
Do you think he looks at Daniel Cormier when he's walking in the cage and gives a little nod? Like, they both understand how hard it was to get down to 205. They both probably weigh around 265 currently. He's just one of those fighters. He enjoyed himself. Maybe a little too much. And maybe not to the level of, like, Kelvin Gastelum, because he's a genuinely good fighter who could have won world titles. But Marcos Rogerio de Lima... Time out. The fight is actually off. So let's actually go over it. Damon Martin of MMA Fighting tweeted Amanda Heboss versus Angela Hill is off tonight's card. Multiple sources confirmed to myself and Guillermo Cruz. So the fight is actually off. CMAC is saying the same thing. It's off. This card is something. Okay. All right, Matt. But Maurice Green and Rogerio de Lima. Continue. Yes, here's the thing. Maurice Green's not that good, and I just don't have a great opinion of his skill level. If Jean Vellante can drop you in the third round of a fight, I don't think you're the best fighter in the world. Now, Maurice Green, oddly enough, is a decent grappler. They matched him up with some other good grapplers. Like, he fought Alexei Oleinik, which is weird, and Oleinik was able to submit him, but he had a few decent grappling transitions with Oleinik. It wasn't just like it was some wash when it hit the mat. So I do think Maurice Green's strength, of course, is in the grappling. My problem is that he's been dropped a lot, and he gets hit a lot. Like, Greg Hardy is an okay striker, even if you want to say that, but he's very basic in the way that he does strike, and if he's able to hurt you on the feet, I think Marcos Rogerio de Lima, no matter how much he does weigh, he's still a high high-level striker with good technique. And I do think a high-level striker with good technique and okay takedown defense is still a good enough fighter to beat Maurice Green. Maybe Green, he showed up in great physical shape. Maybe he's going to show me something he hasn't yet. But I can't predict what he's going to do until I've seen it. So for Green, maybe he goes out there, has a great performance, and I'll change my opinion. But I like De Lima in this fight.
I normally don't bring up other predictors, but I see the tweets out there, and I saw Clint, MMA Diehard Pod, he was going with Green by submission, and I can see a path to that, almost like the Vieira fight against Hernandez, where Vieira gets tired, Hernandez submits him. Marcos Rogerio de Lima, if you go and you look through his overall record, the guy swings wild.
He does.
A lot of the time, he throws a nice kick, which Maurice Green kind of leaves his legs out there to get kicked, but if you want to see a really good fight from Marcos Rogerio de Lima, up at heavyweight, it was a Ben Sassoli fight where he just blitzes, wastes all of his energy, but also finishes Sassoli, and it's kind of gross. If you look at Fight Night Picks on Instagram, 60% De Lima to 40% with Green. Green looks good, and Ray Quinona is saying that he's lazy, this and that. He came out with the Jackson Link, the classic, my legs are out, my hands are out, I'm going to try and kind of slow things down, but that's the perfect opportunity for De Lima to just, what would you say? Vagrant rush him? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We could see him rush him and gets the finish, but I can't bet on this fight because it's just sloppy.
Yeah, it's a sloppy fight. This fight after the first round is going to be one of the worst fights of all time. That's one of the few predictions I feel comfortable making about this fight, but no, I'm going to stick with Marcos Rogerio de Lima. I just think he has enough power that eventually he'll clip Green.
Yeah, I'm going to go De Lima as well. Not switching the pick there, Matt. 455 tuning in. Only 126 likes. It takes 2 seconds. The card might not be great, but we try our best.
But the boys there.
We try our best. All right, Matt, we'll move into our next fight. We have Neil Magny taking on Jeff Neal. We're going to go by first name only in this one, so we're going to go with Neil and with Jeffrey.
Okay.
So we have Jeffrey and we have Neil. Neil has very good grind him out type of fights, and he's the type of guy that can push you up against the cage. He can take you down, rinse and repeat. You get right back up, that's fine. And with Neil, he has some of the best cardio out there. And you can't deny that. Look at the fight against Robbie Lawler. Up, down, up, down, up, down. I'm going to get on top of him. I'm going to hit him a few times. And that was the worst Robbie Lawler I've seen in a long time. Other than the guy that fought, well, I don't know, any of his last 2 or 3 fights. But he didn't look good in that one. For Jeffrey, man, this guy can strike. Man, this guy can finish. We go over to the comments section. C-Max saying Jeff Neal, first round KO. No Please says hands of steel. Matt, I love this fight, so what are you thinking?
I love this fight too. This, again, I said it at the start of this show. This is the fight I'm looking most forward to on this card by far, especially now that Heboss and Hill is off, because I really like that fight too. But I like Jeff Neal quite a bit in this fight for this reason. I've seen fighters a lot like Jeff Neal have a lot of success against Neil Magny. If you can chop down in front, if you can chop a lead leg, and just land decent punches on the inside, you can beat a guy like Neil Magny. Punch Nibia was able to do it. Lorenz Larkin was able to do it. Even RDA was able to do it before he submitted him. He hit him with one leg kick, dropped him with the leg kick, and then submitted him. Neil Magny doesn't check leg kicks, and he does have that wide stance, and he has very thin legs. And if you're a guy like Jeff, not Jeff Neal, if you're a guy like Jeff, who can really chop the legs, then I do think that you can beat a guy in Neil Magny. So I think if Jeff Neal can go out there and just employ all those skills that we know that he has, that left straight, the kicks, try to make this fight a dirty fight in the beginning, because one thing about Neil Magny is Neil Magny's going to try to do the same thing to you. If you can at least meet his wrestling with your power, I do think you'll be able to put him down. I like Jeff Neal a lot in this fight. I know I sound like Yanni the Greek, but I like Jeff Neal. I don't know if he'll win by stoppage, because Neil Magny, he is like you said, he's got great cardio. He's tougher than a $2 steak, but I do like Jeff Neal quite a bit.
Listen up. Breaking news. This important PSA brought to you by our sponsors, Matt. Manscaped.com. This is your public service announcement. Then the news that you've all been waiting for. Manscaped engineering team has confirmed they successfully created the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. And this is in all caps, so I'm going to say it as much, which is now available for purchase in USA and Canada. The majority of our viewers were Canadian. Boom, boom. The new trimmer was just released only moments ago, and we are one of the first to get our hands on it and share the news. It's in the mail, but it will be here. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you, 20% off and free worldwide shipping with code FMP at manscaped.com. Matt, I can't wait to try it out. We will get it in the mail shortly. But Manscaped, they've been here supporting the channel. You've been checking them out and clicking that code, using it down below. FNP, Manscaped, 20% off and free shipping. Can't wait to get it and talk about it later on in the week. Matt, we will move on with that to our co-main event. We have a great fight. You have Donald Cowboy Cerrone take on Alex Morono. People gave me a hard time. We talked about this last night and kind of like the review of the week, so to speak, where we had so many fights falling out, the Diego Sanchez nonsense. Sometimes you just have to hang upside down and get slapped in the face and kicked. Sometimes that's important. But then you look at this fight, and that guy's out, and now you have Alex Morono in. And it's tricky because for Cowboy Cerrone, listen, the guy is in Billy Talent music videos.
He is.
He likes to rock a motorcycle from New Mexico up to Vegas and hang out with his boys. And sometimes Daniel Rodriguez is in his corner. And then you look at the way that he fights, or the way that he's fought in his last 5. All or nothing. Probably didn't make the right choice when he was fighting Tony Ferguson to blow his nose. But other than that, decent fight with Nico Price, decent fight with Pettis. They were fairly competitive. They went back and forth. They were fun to watch. And now you're taking on Alex Morono, a guy that fights a lot like Anthony Pettis in certain respects where they have the same background, jiu-jitsu, they have the taekwondo, and that's kind of where the buck stops. Morono coming in on short notice. He's got a big opportunity. Another big opportunity. What are you thinking here?
It's a weird fight because Morono's going to become a boxer in this fight. We talked about the taekwondo background. Cut it. He doesn't really throw that many kicks in fights. Yes, he will throw body kicks and leg kicks and whatnot, but he likes to get on the inside, uses boxing a lot more. Now, with Cowboy, it'll be interesting because his boxing's not terrible, but I feel like his boxing gets a lot of respect that it doesn't really deserve. If you can eat some of his initial shots, he does leave his chin really high up in the air, and I think a guy like Alex Morono, is he the best welterweight out there? No, he's not, but he's a big enough guy with okay enough power that if he does connect on Cowboy, I do think he's going to put him down. I just think with Cerrone, you had a fighter who is known for like all-time durability, but after you go on a 4-fight losing streak and a 5-fight losing streak, like that durability is going to start getting chipped away over time. And I do think that at a certain point, it just by the time it's going to catch up to you. I like Alex Morono in this fight. It sucks to say because I grew up watching Cowboy. He's very much been a part of my MMA viewing experience, but I just think his time's kind of passed. I know he said that he wants to go back down to 155, and that this is just kind of a bit of a speed bump, but I do like Morono in this fight.
Matt, we got to hit up the super chat over there. Matt the Mix saying Cerrone, and up ahead, Zach G put it in, and then after that he said, I forgot to put a message. So put a message there somewhere, Zach G. You're saying for some reason I feel like Cerrone's going to do really well tonight. The weird thing for Cerrone, you look at the losses, and this was the important thing. A year and 10 months ago, Ferguson. A year and 7 months ago, Gaethje. Then he fought 4 months after that against McGregor. And then he fought a few months after that against Pettis. And then he fought a few months after that against Price. Now it's been 7 months since we've seen him. For Morono, his last time out 4 months ago against Pettis, where he kind of got beat pillar to post. Like, he didn't get started. It was all Pettis. Pettis put on a really good statement performance to get himself some money elsewhere. And then he looked awful against Clay Collard. It's a tricky one. So if we look at Fight Night Picks over on Instagram for the total votes on this one, they're somewhat close, 63% with Cerrone, 37% Morono. It seems like a lot of people in the comment section either way. Some MMA dudes saying Cerrone by decision. Matthew Doherty saying I can't put money on Cowboy at this point. Yeah, it's a pop and popcorn fight for me because for Cerrone, he's got the jiu-jitsu, he has the takedown abilities, he has a good clinch game, he can really strike forwards. Not so much backwards, but it's the same thing can be said for Morono. He's not a good fighter on his back foot. And we've seen him get cracked moving backwards. You want to go back to my favorite fight? We talked about it, the Max Griffin fight. He's good moving forward, and then when he's moving back, he's not that good. Hengli, you hitting us up in the super chat. We appreciate you as well. So you've got Morono in this one, eh?
I do, yeah. I just think Cowboy at 170 it's not my favorite weight class for him. I think he does belong at 155, and even down to 155, I don't know what kind of a future he has there, so I'm going to stick with Alex Morono in this fight. I just think the forward pressure and the overall volume of Morono will eventually get to Cowboy.
Yeah, I mean, Morono, if you want to see a good performance of his, again, we talked about it, but the Reese McKee fight, exactly. That's really it. He looked great. Bailey's saying, give me one last Cowboy Cerrone highlight.
I want that to happen. Like, on the inside, I'm not going to lie. I would like to see one of those Cowboy, 1-2 head kicks, and it's like, wow, then he retires and everything's good, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
We got Ray Quinones hitting us up in the super chat. We appreciate you as well. I still have Cerrone in this one, but this is the biggest red flag fight. I don't have the most confidence in it. I said it at the start of the week. I still have him in this one again. Because for Cerrone, it was a full camp to take on Sanchez. For Morono, he's coming in here on short notice. He made the weight, but sometimes when you're coming in on short notice, that's the biggest battle, is making the weight. He did it, so now it's all gravy, but I do like Cerrone in this fight. And Brody is saying, I got Cowboy, and you can trust me because I'm from Ontario. Matt, they have rattlesnakes in Ontario. How crazy is that?
That's wild.
Isn't that
A lot of
crazy?
people don't know that.
Now
Canada,
you know
some
it.
wild climates.
There is rattlesnakes in Ontario, and I'm dead serious about it. Matt, our next fight, we have Marina Rodriguez taking on Michelle Waterson. This is a main event that's happening in 2021 at 125 pounds. And for Michelle Waterson, looked good on the scale. Like, you know, all jokes aside, she looked pretty good. So did Marina Rodriguez. And that's the thing. Rodriguez coming into this one maybe on a little bit more short notice than Waterson was. Or at least, you know, Marina didn't publicize that she was going to be in the fight. But Waterson did. I really do like the fight because you feel like Waterson probably brings in a few more wrinkles to this one. For Marina Rodriguez off her back, she strikes and she kind of she'll keep a closed guard, and you don't really like to see that. For Waterson, she can be very active off the ground. If you've ever seen Waterson against a good ground fighter, it can sometimes be 50-50. I think back to the Courtney Casey fight is one that kind of went either way. Probably Casey won that fight, but maybe not. I like the matchup. What are you thinking?
It's a weird fight. It really is, because we have two strawweights fighting a flyweight. We really don't even have two strawweights. We have a strawweight fighting an atomweight, an added agreed upon weight of 125. It's just very odd. And in a week that's had a lot of weird things in combat sports, like Jake Paul stole Floyd Mayweather's hat. That happened. Billy Joe Saunders didn't show up for a press conference. It's just been a weird week all in all with combat sports. This main event is odd. I think Rodriguez is getting a really big push, especially after a win over Heboss, because Heboss was such a really hyped up prospect, especially at the time when Rodriguez knocked her out. For Waterson, they gotta stop giving us Michelle Waterson main events. They do. It's, the third now, and it's getting ridiculous, because she's just not that kind of a fighter. I think, which is weird to say, because I really think her only chance in this fight is because it is a 5-round fight and she might be able to outlast Marina Rodriguez, but I like Rodriguez quite a bit. I like her power on the feet. I hate the fact that Michelle Waterson, and I'm not the only one who makes fun of her for this, but like those jabs from the whole way across the cage and the front kicks, strikes landed to Casper the Ghost don't count. So it is really hard for me to pick Michelle Waterson. I think if Rodriguez can walk forward, she actually has a decent chance to win by TKO because she is that much bigger of the fighter in this fight. I like Rodriguez, but again, the 5 rounds does worry me a little bit because Waterson does have the experience edge.
I like Rodriguez too for those reasons, and like you said, the experience, something interesting. Quinones, Mr. Ray, you're hitting us up. Marina's too well-rounded for the kickboxer. I see Marina contending for the title, and she could. I mean, she needs a few more of those wins, like a Nina Nunes type win, or maybe you got to go up there and beat Tatiana Suarez, who seems to be moving up the flyweight, so we'll see how that one plays out. But you look at this one, numbers-wise, obviously you have a bigger sample size for Waterson, but the thing that might scare you, the strikes landed to absorbed, it's at a negative 3.58 given to 4 taken, and for Rodriguez, 4.86 given to 3.16 taken. Again, level of competition plays into it. With the takedowns, you got 59% takedown defense from Rodriguez. You might not love it. 34% accuracy for Waterson. So we'll see how this one plays out. But again, I still like Rodriguez. Jack is saying, what are you guys watching on Hulu when this card ends? I'm probably going to be watching DAZN with Canelo. I don't have Hulu either. But I think Canelo is going to beat Billy Joe Saunders.
So I have some money on that.
Love that fight. 64% of fans have Rodriguez to get the win. Like I said, still going with Rodriguez in this one. And Matt, it's an interesting card. So everybody over there in the chat, you're having a good time. 538 tuning in. We got to get above 200 likes. Even for a card with 9 fights, that's a little bit lesser than. You got to toss those likes up there. Help out the boys. But yeah, do like Rodriguez. Matt, we'll flip it on down to the bottom of this card. It's where the Fight Night Picks parlay kicks off. I have Carlston Harris in the first leg.
I agree with you. I like Carlston Harris quite a bit in the opening bout of this card that all of a sudden only has 9 fights. Because not good all of a sudden. But still, I like Carlston as well.
All right, Carlston Harris there. Tafon Nchukwi taking on Jin Young Park. I switched the pick, and I felt confident enough to throw it into the question mark kicks parlay. I've got Tafon Nchukwi to get the win here. You add those two together, you're in the, what was it, plus 150?
64, I think.
Yeah, plus 164. So Tafon Nchukwi, my second pick.
I like Tafon as well. I was pretty confident on him at the start of the week. I just think Park's slightly too hittable. And against a guy like Tafon, that's not a risk that you could really try. So I do like Tafon in this fight. Inside the distance might be a little bit too much, but I do think he'll get the win.
All right, Matt, we're both going with Nchukwi. Our next fight, we have Ludovit Klein taking on Mike Trizano. What a great fight. 5 likes away from 200, so it's close. Bro Bogan saying that My only regret is I only have one like to give. Give it for a friend, maybe. But Trizano, Klein. Maybe Trizano brings in a new wrinkle to his game where we haven't seen him for a long time. I'd love to see that too. Bring a little bit of breath of fresh air. Former tough winner. Y'all must have forgot. But I am slightly going with Klein.
Mike Trizano just really hopes John Gunther gets re-signed to the UFC so he can fight him again and beat him. I don't think he's going to beat Ludovit Klein. I think Ludovit Klein has a pretty high ceiling. I like his striking a lot. Thankfully, he did make weight, and he looked pretty good on the scale as well, which I was slightly concerned of. But no, I like Klein quite a bit in this fight.
All right, Matt, we move into our next fight. We have Phil Hawes taking on Kyle Daukaus. Now, Phil Hawes has the hair. Ray Quinones shouts to Yonkers. And this is a tricky one because for Hawes, he has the wrestling. He has the power. He has the good kicks. He beat a good striker in his last fight in Nasruddin Imavov. For Kyle Daukaus, beat a smaller man in his last fight. Was preparing for a totally different camp when he got Phil Hawes. I love the fight. Can Hawes get it done on like 4 weeks' notice?
I don't think he can. I do like Kyle Daukaus. I think his overall grappling game, it's just his ability to withstand adversity and then push through. He's a guy who he can lose the first 2 rounds and still come back in that 3rd round and do very well. He's got great cardio. He's got a great chin. I love his grappling. I like Daukaus quite a bit in this fight. But again, I could look really dumb in saying all this because I can openly admit that Phil Hawes could land one big shot and everything I said doesn't really matter. But I do like Kyle Daukaus in this fight.
Like I said, I think I've talked about every way that Kyle Daukaus could win this fight. And I could see it happening too. This one is really close. We're split on the pick. I have Hawes, but if Daukaus wins, would I be surprised tomorrow? No. Would I be surprised tonight? I'm going to be watching it? No. Matt, we'll move on to our next fight because Heboss Hill is off the card. So we'll talk about Carlos Diego Ferreira taking on Gregor Gillespie. And for Diego, missed weight. 160.5. And we had a fighter recently that kind of did the same thing in Gabriel Benitez. And JSP, Jonathan Pierce, was like, no, I'm not signing the bout sheet. But Gregor Gillespie had the self-confidence that he's going ahead with this fight. For Diego, yeah, decent striker, great jiu-jitsu, really good top pressure. And in most of his fights, he's the better wrestler, except when he takes on Beneil Dariush and probably Gregor Gillespie.
Exactly. Now, the thing about Beneil Dariush is he's also just extremely well-rounded, and he's kind of the more well-rounded version almost of a Diego Ferreira, so he almost ran into a better version of himself. In this fight, I do think the wrestling of Gregor Gillespie is just going to be so overwhelmingly dominant in this fight. Gregor Gillespie, for the last 2 years, has seen nothing but Kevin Lee land an overhand right into a left high kick, and I think he's got a lot of aggression that he would like to get out in his next fight. I think Gillespie is going to remind everyone why he was such a hyped-up prospect. I like Gillespie a lot.
Matt, both of us going with Gregor Gillespie. I had to change the pick after the weight miss. Listen, could Diego win it? Yeah, I laid out plenty of reasons in the original video, but I don't like that there. We move into our next fight, and oh boy, Maurice Green taking on Marcos Rogério de Lima. De Lima weighing in at 264.5, the former light heavyweight from Maurice Green, 237, and looking good on the scale, so maybe he's ditched the fight week beers, but it is a tricky one because for Green, not the sexiest record. He's knocked out Junior Albini, so props. But Marcos Rogério de Lima, great striker. This is a prove-me fight, and I would honestly say, like, loser probably gets sent packing.
Oh, yeah, loser goes home, without a doubt. It's a weird fight, but I do think De Lima and the overall striking and just his aggression will be able to catch Green. Green likes to have his chin really high up in the air, and I understand if you're a tall fighter, you're just kind of used to doing that in training, so you can kind of get away with it. But in the cage, you're going to get caught eventually, and I do think those big looping hooks of De Lima are going to land at some point.
This is one of those fights, MF saying which Sobe's better, Prospect or Regent. Well, Prospect has the new one, so you got to go with Prospect. But in this fight, it's kind of like a lesser version of Stefan Struve and Roy Nelson. And in that fight, Roy Nelson won.
A weird fight.
Yeah, Struve could submit him, but I just don't see it happening. We'll move on to our next one. We have Neil Magny taking on Jeff Neal. And I'm still feeling Jeff Neal, hands of steel.
Hands of Steel, Jeff Neal. I like him a lot. Great nickname, too. I just like him in this fight. It's his finishing ability, I guess, is the term that I've been looking for. If anyone's getting a finish in this fight, it's going to be Jeff Neal. Neil Magny, he can get them. He's got decent ground and pound. He has okay submission abilities, but he's more of the type of fighter who's going to try to outlast his opponent and drag them into deep waters. Jeff Neal has good cardio, though, good takedown defense, and I think he's the much better striker in this matchup, so I like Jeff Neal quite a bit in this fight.
Yeah, Neil Magny was some of the best striking straight up. Night 22, FHS or Leo Hayes? Leo Hayes. Donald Cerrone taking on Alex Morono. We're split on this one. It's another tricky one. This whole week just feels like a bunch of garbage picks. I've got Cerrone. You've got Morono. There's not much more to say. Listen.
Cerrone's old. That's my problem.
It's unfortunate that the Dream isn't in this fight, but,
it's not.
Thoughts and prayers to the Dream.
Cowboy would have knocked him out in 1 round.
Yikes. Matt, next fight, Marino Rodriguez and Michelle Waterson. Both of us going with Rodriguez, but it's tricky. Again, 5 rounds.
That's the only thing that worries me. I do think Waterson has a slight edge in the grappling and in the wrestling, but at the end of the day, I just think Marino Rodriguez's ability to string combinations together with power is going to be able to win her this fight at the end of the day.
It should be a great one, Matt. I mean, 9 fights on a card. Woo. It's something that's going to happen. You get the Canelo fight with Saunders later on tonight. Sometimes you don't show up to the first face-off. Sometimes you get faced in. It's going to be tricky because the guy that keeps his hand out is susceptible to getting hit in the body, and Canelo has great body shots. He has one of the best hooks to the body that you're going to see, him and maybe Tank Davis. But I love that fight. I love it more than this main event. But as always, we're not boxing guys. We're MMA guys. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Next week, UFC 262. Big card. Really looking forward to that. Hopefully you can check out some of the content there. Awesome stuff on the site. Early Stoppage will be coming out tomorrow morning, so look out for that. And we've got some interviews banked as well. One with Yusuf Zalal that you're not going to want to miss. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. And as we always say, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. It's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig
and Matt.